Hello, Americans. Before elections, during elections, and since elections, they were criminally foreign influence locations, areas, and states that were blamed on other things other than themselves, including our founding fathers, who cannot tell a lie when you tell them right, because they didn't have free speech. Entrenched before they were born in the North and South was slavery, sickly distinctly. A quality of fact, cheap in nature, capable of understanding and using that for correlation to discern the breaching method, the predicate acts delivery system method, if you will. That sustained, made and maintained, only capable of being predicate acts delivery system methods in natures, like wrongdoers, criminal insidiousness natures. These are organized crime terms, but these are also war crime terms. And this is also worse than war crimes originally instilled. So we have opinions about, so we have groups, every single group. When all this time, no one ever noted how groups get over on individuals, and then those individuals are going to talk bad about the groups. Even when they don't, they pretend they call people racist and things like that, make allegations with no real premises. That's what people involved, but needing to pretend other. That's what people involved with the overtly, even easier to discern, juxtaposed natures of real insidious things, leveled and dishonestly, everyone pretending other, leveraged against the most forsaken areas, against all locations, especially against those most forsaken, sickly distinctly. This measures and maintains self-cultivated, self-valued, everyone blaming other things other than themselves for what that breaching method caused and causes, made and keeps only fathomable. People could say it's their opinions about it that runs that. They can pretend to believe it's racism that runs that. That's not real science speaking. They're pretending not to discern the difference between police and courts and people and themselves. Individually grouped and together, they have crime methods that they self-value. They are just like the overt criminal enterprises and the private ones. Then they go home and they communicate anyway, using other people's names anyway. Increasingly self-valuing the breaching method since the youngest ages, because it's a method that's perfected since before them. There's complete remote uses of suits and ties in their counters, their logic. You have to counter someone coming across the country with a whole bunch of guns and saying that they're going to kill a representative. You don't ignore that. But what they're doing is countering that and using that to counter every innocent people. And to keep that guy and every other, people that actually do things wrong, like crimes. They're attached to those narratives are going into databases. Just descriptions are going, pretended audio and video transcripts, to replace what's actually recorded. Totally made up, more and more and more. That's what most furthers the overt criminal enterprises. That's what most further, with that, they have to hide their lie progressions. They do it by preventing people free speech. But they make mistakes on cases on purpose. This is a weapon. The gun, they're using the guns sickly distinctly. They're an individual branch, independent but criminally foreign influence, each of them. The delusions wrought, which we would have overcome, but they are rules, crimes, predators. They are a quality of fact, cheap in nature, that needs to pretend they believe our founding parents had slaves. Not they were forced slave roles. One job's harder than another because the guy said it. Not just because the guy said it. That's the truth, but that's choose for lose for lie too, because the breaching method said it. And that's sustained. Again, there's a whole bunch of motivations, natures, needs, interests spoken about freely. but no one's going to speak about freely. Even that, they're not going to speak freely. No one's going to speak freely what caused it. Originally, still, one Elijah talked about it, even though it was actually what is capable of being voiced, as what actually the Constitution voices unabridged, as a quality of fact, cheap in nature to its reception. If you don't have a quality of free speech, if in other words, if they're preventing exceptions and exception nature from being demonstrated, our founding, even if the president had, they found out he had directed some guys to bring guns and things like that and to come attack the Capitol. That's a quality of fact, cheap in nature that can't, that in other words, is still being used remotely. You're leaving out how individually grouped and together hundreds of nations were forced here in their names to all identity ground locations, but increasingly needing to value the real causes of negative value, nature, progressions, acts, and natures, blamed on other things other than themselves, and or on crimes, other things like crimes. Crimes don't think. And before the people committing crimes where there are shootings through lifetimes, through generations, the only people allowed to speak are fake ones involved with the suits and ties. All identity ground locations, jobs, titles, everyone forced to speak through others. It shouldn't be their sensibilities. So they're pretending people speak about things when we speak about it online with other people because they have to hide libraries. So they have motivations, natures, needs, methods of predicate acts, delivery systems, and cover-ups that are ulterior from the breaching methods, individually grouped and together, corrupt. Just like with the locations, but even that, in other words, they have to hide that. They have to hide their actually standing recorded, actual value of actually recorded standing value as nature. And it is as criminal insidiousness, self-valued being and having been criminally foreign influenced because they came through criminally foreign influenced sciences and were all on how all exceptions and exception nature were employed to maintain it, blamed on other things, others themselves, the causes for that and the uses of it. Also, again, juxtaposed to other motivations, there's breaching screen, breaching tools. Now, when we have to speak about that breaching method, this already has the sense and sensibilities, the quote, sense and sensibilities, unquote, using Jane Austen's phrase, which is also a human phrase, using the nervous system of everyone, using the sense and sensibilities of everyone, incapable of defending themselves and of affording a quality of fact, cheap in nature, capable of speaking honestly and properly about what James Marbury versus Madison means, for example, which it means, I was taught by my father, accomplished pro se litigant. Quote, it means, quote, real justice must satisfy all appearances of real justice, unquote. See, and you have to realize this was against the Native Americans first, especially if you didn't have a father. This is one of the best things for correlation to understand if you want to understand American history with proper integrity, no theater integrity. You can't a theater positive can't get. In other words, the real answers show forgiveness was about that, not to give up, to have this complex. Not to have this simple method of the simple short words in the revelations in relationship to and as the law and what is greater than its spirit. It will only stay positive unto itself, increasingly. Earth's is a distinct, non-distinct, and simultaneous relationship to the other rest of space nature that is a concentrated value/value progression. Relationship to its complete identity, the identity of value progression, that is distinct, for example, as demonstrated by how there are 300, how there are 1,000 I mean, 900, I think it's 995, I forgot now. But after I did on paper, 3 years. And then if you add 5 to it, and you say, well, what's this mean? I mean, it's a theory that's more practical than the theories they have. And the evidences of it are also uses of their theories and defenses of their theories that require self-value uses of tactically, criminally, foreign influence premises treatments and nature of value treatments here and there and across the board of nations. We're in a semi-ancient trap that knew this would be the outcome. It knew that it designed what nature will continue to demonstrate negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures about to each person's correlation. And it knew that it had employed a whole bunch of identities, countless identities that could no longer afford correlation nature's short words in the revelations. And regarding the nature of the laws, witch trials. They can't even explain witch trials properly yet. So they blame on other things, others themselves, the causes of it. And they blame it on drugs, which is something they bring up because of how the judicial branch has roles with the furtherance of drug dealing and medicines crimes with all ages, and with physical delusions, and as rules crimes predators. And they switch names, forge names, delay the news while they're stacking it, and more people they're already all themselves valued, everyone speaking to others, being and having been employed. Can't defend that and speak for ethics and morality properly, but they speak for it anyway. This is a trap where the sciences are abridged tactically. So, there are, all the topics in the news have conjunctions. Like there's an Oliveri family that is that recorded, confessed, and demonstrated. There's a Joshua Stryker. I never had a conversation with Joshua Stryker. Alan knows Eric Oliveri through everyone speaking through other people. He's recorded, confessed, and demonstrated since he was a kid, involved with men and women that were involved with predicate acts that were on and off my campuses and on and off the classes I went to, and with people where they know you don't know other people's names, and they time confessions. They time also in the form of statements, and then they pretend they lie about their nature of relationship to you and to others and with others, and that became relevant because they exploited it through time, as the people involved with the wire crimes with the Wethersfield police over the last months and before the pandemic. These are also people associated with Maine with a bunch of drugs and medicines crimes, with overt criminal enterprises that are with the people that they influenced, that had roles with the influences of communications with others, real and made up. These are courts attaching little kids to fake locations. There's also Chet Casper, who was confessed by people at Hartford Hospital, pretending he knows me, criminally involved with all kinds of natures of federal crimes, identity thefts and frauds with them, and with others, and his father, his family. And these are people with coaches, where they have coaches, because then the coaches you never even talk to. And then they have some of their players and their neighbors where they have them grouped like that. Like across the street from a Perone family, who also, they do like an acting, a play, where they have all roles with the play. And they lie about with the person before they come up. Him and a Kerr family, also recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed by Officer Jerry Miller and people at New Britain Superior Court. And people associated with other courts are involved with them with predicate acts, intercampuses, intercities, on off campuses through time. Now these are evidence racketeering natures where they make things, they want to bring people to court for what they say online, also dishonestly, because they're covering up their roles with predicate acts with these people since through time. Intercampuses. These are people I never even had classes with too. People that went to private schools, like an O'Brien family involved with this. So we have different police forms with our regular police forms. Not by accident, through administrations, they pretend the police, they leave out the other police forms. They leave out how each of the departments in the other police forms are so many ways. Originally still, criminally foreign influence, a non-difference. They're pretending they have difference where it doesn't. They have criminally foreign influence readings of statutes that they can't get away with until they keep everything at the last second in courts. And they're forcing subject switches and no one to bring up the sequence yet. In other words, the evidence that show everything they're trying to pull forward is fake, originally and still. Every day they have to hide what they've been doing before. They have to hide what they were used for when they were kids. People in the Britain Superior Court were involved with drugs and medicines crimes. With the kids they put in two different cooking classes I had. For example, all the classes I had, it shows plotting behind them. I did a health class project on this because it was about lipoaggressions between campuses too. In quick instances, strangers, then they pretend to know you. So I don't know the name of the woman at Trinity College, but she's associated with I don't know this Joshua Stryker either too. I know they pretended they one time off campus I was around him, but I had nothing to do with him. So they tried to make that as an exception. They had all these people make all these confessions. They drew it as a context where no one could go back and tell the truth, which is a house down the street from the state judicial branch offices, an Oliveri family's house, near this farm. The first house at the end of that bridge that goes over to Glastonbury. Now there are intelligence families with Glastonbury, associated with in East Hartford, associated with the Scalora family, and with the DeMorrow family, and with a Pandolf family involved with predicate acts intercities on and off the campuses of juxtaposed natures. Also roles with recorded remote uses of types of experts, types of police, inclusion with the regular police, even the families of and uses of them remotely of the fire departments, intercities and intra-cities. Same people involved with this inter-campuses and intra-campuses identity thefts and frauds. There's a Brian Salvo. I never had a conversation with him. I only saw his picture and heard his name through others. And he's got that picture online on Facebook, but he's got a different name now. All kinds of ways, names forging and switching. These are with judges, male and female. These are with female black and white judges involved with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, with the people differentially criminally foreign influence that are also KKK Confederate flag themed, involved with them with predicate acts. I'm not trying to counter. They pretend well, I don't know what he's talking about. They know what I'm talking about. The only reason I know them is because they were recorded. They sought me out to make confessions. That's actually what they communicated. They were involved with identity thefts and frauds, evidence reception racketeering. Now, it's not by accident since founding. They're leaving out how the courts and how the evidence reception predators were involved with the overt criminal enterprises and the private ones, and the body dumping spots, uses of investigations. Everyone's knowing they're going to tell the truth. How can anybody tell the truth? They're forcing people to roles with these punk games since they're in the youngest grades. They're making fake instances because they can exploit them later between campuses. They're lying about what comes before those things. So we have to counter the physical delusions and all kinds of natures of organized crime, not just drugs crimes and medicines crimes that doctors, foreign and domestic, are, also with the social people and the people who answer the phones for the schools and for the interbranch. They're involved with wire crime methods and mail crime methods, self-valued, because that's relevant because of recorded uses of that. They're preventing people from having this what is simultaneous used to make points from, which requires juxtaposed subjects. So when the president was trying to use fake news as a premise, because they're pretending real things, because the agencies, no, both Democrat, they're pretending it's only Democrat politics. They're telling them how to cover up lie progressions by lying. Tell them how they could lie. Like on and off Central Connecticut State University, they have roles with communications department. That leading up to the World Trade Center and since is with FBI and other agencies, intercities on off campuses involved with predicate acts. Again, with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and the witness protection program. And they lie about the motivations of people, like the news. And they attach us to fake words, so they know they're lying. And fake pleading in cases. And they lie about the outcome of cases. Because with the defendants in the cases. And with federal criminals before that was proven through time with the same campuses that not by accident WFSB every year. They go, with a certain age of class. Fourth grade, Hilton Cataly came to my fourth grade class. Now there were mayors with their kids, Central CCSU and Trinity College. I found this is what I know now. In relationship to just confessions from strangers. Then they want to call names to people. Now these are also people who want to pretend to be against bullying. Because then they call names and then they lie about your behavior. Then they want to have a debate about behavior, leaving out their sequence shifts and predicate acts roles, identity thefts and frauds roles. When they make an opinion about when Jim Crow was about, as victims, they are victim predators furthering identity thefts and frauds. Furthering tactical sabotage of reliefs that every person knows from your soul. We are capable of in an instant and tomorrow. But you're not doing it because you're fake. CT must break. I tell no lies. All rise! All rise. Now. Don't respond to my on this thing unless you understand something. I want the name on paper for the interbranch forging and switching names because there's way more tied to it. Intercities. You get me that response on time. You failed that way. You respond for this. Why? How you took all this time? You weren't investigating. Since I was a kid, you owed me a response. You hid what I recorded in through my health class when I was a kid, because I caught you with the private schools and the public schools, and now I caught you with homeschool too. You needed that difference. Put me a fake location, fake conversations with people. Better get them onto paper too. Hartford Hospital, 3 times. I wrote them letters. They're not responding. They wrote me a letter the first time. 3 times they brought me there because I had to raise my voice because you can't record the police. So I had to make them write something because they were because of a method. For example, a Dillon family, and Anna Dillon, and she changes the name spelling Annie Dillon. That's also involved with them with time shifts, with sequence shifts, roles with child abuses of juxtaposed natures and uses of the identity ground locations and names brought up like all sides of the community center and on and off the community center with people also on and off Fox Connecticut News involved with predicate acts on and off Trinity College, on and off CCSU, identity thefts and frauds, also with their family members. There's a Charlie Bowes. I never had a conversation with him in my life. I never had anything to do with his sister. The only context I know her in, she was pretending other. I knew her years ago with the people involved, because she's involved with like all kinds of natures of drugs and medicines crimes with courts with this with people interstates with this Chris Walters and his mother, and with the people with the Old Town Cafe, and those spots in the fire department there, and all the way in those spots in that area, all on Church Street, per them too. No, per them. These are people that put people in the fake conversations with themselves, and these are people all the way from there to CCSU through cities involved with this through time, connected instances. And on off, sent all sides of Central Connecticut State University because they're involved with fact, cheating nature-oriented predicate acts. It wants to hide them. And that's a breaching screen. It's a breaching motivations. And what it simultaneously does is keep projected to each age of fact, cheating nature, of correlation nature, tactical, criminally foreign influenced natures of patriotism natures, of positive treatment natures, in collusion with the negative treatment natures that are criminal insidiousness natures. So, even if they made all, and especially differentially, if they made all that stuff up about what they show us in the news, because they do make things up to hide their personal criminal foreign influences, and grouped, and altogether in uses of that, all locations, areas, states. Then they pretend it's personal. They pretend they don't understand people. I began asking you for a response for the rape threats and the confessions from the principal child offender since before that was caught. And WFSB attached me to fake words with some parents that are interbranch and foreign as the ones that are also a bunch of ways with overt criminal enterprises in foreign policing and people associated with body dumping spots with them. And with the investigate with identity thefts and frauds roles with them, with instances relevant as people associated with former director of the FBI, knowingly and or not, and his co-defendants and their family members, knowingly and or not. They also were involved with timed instant with predicate acts with uses of the kids that I went to school around. And everywhere, intercities, the same ones. Then they use them as adults to get over on those people. These aren't people that are legitimately about politics. They don't care about politics. They care about self, which is fine. If they wanted to do it the natural way, where that self is individual, group, and species. Do it distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously as it's science, the one that's going to cause inventions to work or not, or be further positive or negative or not. That's about what is simultaneous. They kept saying, and the president said with no influence, with no evidences. He kept trying to say use fake news as a premise. And as its relationship to sequence, you guys kept switching the sequence too. Then you had to pretend, because then we're just going to another story. See, these are backed into gangs, the branches of government and the private tied to them, like the news. Backed into breaching screens, fake patriotism natures. They can't follow mandated law, have to pretend other. So they pretend they understand the motivations of a people, and with physical delusions, and as rules, crimes, predators, roles, with locations note, and with wire crime, identity thefts, and frauds, mail crime, and methods of it. So election crimes and crime methods took place. Now these are the people in collusion with are also the people who are on TV every day speaking about crimes. Yeah, you have to make people know there's going to be a punishment for things. They're doing it wrong. They're doing it just to keep criminally foreign influenced everyone's mouth shut. A quality of fact, cheap in nature, but that will never let that become the possession of what and who could make everyone heal everywhere at once. That's what evolution science does. It uses ground, all gather round. Boxings. I tell you things alone. So you get me, tell me who disbelieves, have them pick one name in sequence into branch with the private, because they're with the locations now. These are people playing with games with people's homes. They have a whole bunch, they have a Wethersfield officer forced his way into my house in the course of this. And he brought up a Spada family, threatened me about a Spada family, so he could refer to that conversation, lie about it later. I want that officer's name now. I want that on paper. They're forging, switching names, punks, over the phone too. Don't pretend that they speak for police when you hear the fake news. CNN and Fox News and MSNBC. Their Facebook pages and selves, and the difference of that is being and having been employed so they can all play stupid and speak through other people and use their faith while they're calling us names and speaking about our motivations and why we want our YouTube videos to be heard. Not the actual premises, not sequence true. Because that will show all these people in collusion with their patients and with their criminals and with their family members. How kept needing the same thing? They keep victim predators because what they're doing with the databases, like with the girls who are now women incapable of affording the defense of anyone in that court properly, male or female, because of what they went through when they were kids, and with this Jonathan Mayano and his family, with the sequence shifts with them, and people with all these people tied to the boxing gyms and uses of that, timed on off CCSU, on off Trinity College, and with these people. I don't know those twins from Johnny Duke's gym and with this Cabaco's shopping center. I don't know these people. Now these are all kind of ways. The people with the prisons, and that they're trained, like, for example, on-off Central Connecticut State University, which is in part with the interstate system. There are people tied to a Frankie Reese that is also recorded, confessed, and demonstrated involved intercities, worse than interstates and just internations, because it's against people in England, Ireland, too. These are some bad people with the criminal justice system and psychology, psychiatry. Russians against Russians, Palestinians against Palestinians, a collusion. Israelis against Israelis. You think you have legitimate people speaking for you? Have them pick one name in sequence. Get them from their nonsense. I'm an individual too. Don't come at me with a group and then pretend hate speech and counter to it. People pretending to be for you, for the streets, so they make it about color, because they can't make it about the streets, because then they're going to they're going to have the conversation about that. They have to keep the subjects switched, because they're increasingly stacking fabricated audio and video to replace what's actually there, and with the delusions, but the rules, crimes, predators. So you guys make sure that we get a response I want a response for the confessions from the school. They understood what I said over the phone too. They're lying if they say other. Make sure, because they're being coached and having been coached. This is what the principal child offender told me before. Now they hid what I caught before that, because I didn't even get a chance to tell anybody about it yet. They'd say they couldn't understand simple sentences. I want to respond for the rape threats too. With New Britain Superior Court's Facebook pages, with the Facebook pages of the campuses, pretending to be against behavior as sequence shifts. These are people with locations and online and through the media, sequence shifting, making fake sides of issues because they're in collusion with the courts. So get them on paper, because these are also the ones with those other countries that they forced to rolls with them before the World Trade Center attack. Then they couldn't be honest about that. Now they painted themselves into a corner with the various nations they brought up, with all these news topics, right through administrations too. So it's both parties that are involved. It's both parties, because, and like the guy driving with the guns to Washington, D.C., that is reflective of a nature of mental illness that is pseudo-education oriented and driven, and how it is self-valued, because that is used remotely, because worse is used remotely. All identity ground locations, not complicated. You follow mandated law, I'll show you how the people with the buildings next to Fox Connecticut News are involved with them with identity thefts and frauds. Mike Violet, what's up with you guys with these agencies, these police forms and courts? Why, what people on my street brought you guys into it. I didn't mean to do it, So, and now these are the people the Wethersfield police confessed and recorded their forging, switching names with. And also you guys are with that field near your house where you are now and next to that church. and you're associated with this Justin Glavinskis, who's also recorded, confessed, and demonstrated involved with timed instances next to Central Connecticut State University, and with people associated with apartments next to it, with the policing that are with them criminally foreign influenced, and roles with forensics locations, and with other cases in the past. They've been hiding their life progressions by pretending to perceive things on others, and planting evidences. That's what they're doing, planting evidences online, sequence shifting with the courts. There's a Joe Aiello who recorded, confessed, and demonstrated by a whole bunch of people, and by himself he confirmed it on and off Trinity College and on and off where he lives. He's also rolls with predicate acts, identity thefts, and frauds, and all along Route 3, from Wethersfield to Cromwell. There's a whole bunch of people involved with Cromwell that are involved with identity thefts and frauds, as people involved also with the prisons, with database racketeering, where the data in the databases is being used to corroborate where they're putting fake things in more places than once. That's why they're so stupid so long, and leaving out exceptions in exception nature. So anyone trying to go after hate crimes is not trying to go after, trying to help the streets. They're just making the law more naive, and give them more reasons to blame how originally and still recorded overtly / insidiously criminally foreign influence statutes and precedents could have and didn't remain self-valued. So I apologize to you guys for America, Germany. Joseph Mengele was in collusion with people we had here and there. It was a little bit worse, a lot worse overtly / insidiously, because they were measuring, keeping the arrays, fake sides, everyone blaming the real cause of negative value, nature, progressions, actions, other things other than themselves, where they left off this torture method that was as relevant because it was standing before the World Trade Center attack, and as their roles with the people that defended torture to counter it when they knew they had collusion. But they had to pretend passions and emotions because they already had been using the Saudis to say whatever because their uses of West Farms Mall. Because, with a whole bunch of people from Wethersfield, that's in West Hartford, with their uses of the route from Old Wethersfield all the way to CCSU. Whole bunch of people in confessions brought up those locations to me since I was a kid. As the people involved with the wire crimes with the Wethersfield police forging and switching names. Note stacking names. What's that do? That stacks the sense and sensibilities of the family members of the more and more police, doesn't it? Needing to hide bad things against a lot of people. Then they need to value the reason that is. Blame the other things other than themselves. Right the way the breaching method needs maintains effectively here and there. You think Russians and Americans spoke for science? Honestly, they have nuclear weapons, and they want to go into electricity now. We're still in houses since before cars were invented, forced with the torture slavery method, north and south. That's the standard in whatever we can afford. It's not because we don't have enough space. It's not because we can't afford better. We like that's free, better than free. The whole put a real free path, put real integrity, put emotions and passions that are not denying exceptions, not valuing them denied. You only have heard emotions and passions used to get over on exceptions, exception nature. Now you better get someone who could speak for black, because they keep speaking, but they can't speak. Or white, because every time you speak for black or white, you're speaking for everyone. And you keep putting your physical delusions on everyone. Now you got the kids, you got the kids across the board of school, natures of schools. You got people driving to New York City or to Washington, D.C. with guns. And then you guys are so naive, you're blaming on the president. You guys are some sick punks. You got to better look in the mirror with the overt criminal enterprise. Back to the same nature of life. You like that difference, so you can say, pretend you're just countering them. Because you can only capable of discerning your identity through contrast. That is maintained outcome /S. I tell it best. Boxings. I teach you things. YouTube.com/user/Romulus Wall. They do not want it to be televised. The news media recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. They make allegations about the motivations of why people want to be heard, and about so they could force a quality of fact cheating nature outside of courts in collusion with the courts and the police forms that are criminally foreign influenced. No, they're a non-difference. They're difference. So they need things to go before their courts, but through, they need to switch names, forge names. Value and self-value, how they were, are evidence racketeering natures that fabricate audio and video. They replace what is actually recorded audio and video with fabricated audio and video. You get them on paper now. I'll tell no lies. All rise, all rise.